I never thought I'd live to see the day when my own blood would turn her back on me at 65. I thought I had seen enough of life's betrayals, lost friends, a failed business, the quiet, gnawing loneliness that comes after your wife passes and your phone rings less and less. But nothing prepared me for what my daughter did. It all started 2 years ago. Emily had always been a smart girl, bright eyes, quick with numbers, and always good with people. She was my pride. I raised her after her mother died when she was just 11. I worked double shifts at the auto shop just to make sure she never felt like she had less than other kids. She was the kind of daughter who hugged you just a second longer, sent birthday cards with thoughtful notes, and always called back. At least that's what I believed. Things changed after she married Jack. Jack wasn't a bad man, not on the surface. He dressed well, spoke with confidence, always had some new business idea, cooking. He seemed ambitious, but in a way that always made me nervous. Too slick, too sure, always talking, rarely listening. But Emily loved him, and when your daughter looks at a man like he hung the stars, what can a father say? I smiled at the wedding. I paid for most of it. Even walked her down the aisle with trembling hands and tears threatening to spill. They moved into a modest apartment on the edge of town. Jack said it was temporary. He had big plans, just need a little momentum. You know. A few months later, Emily came to me with a request. Dad, can we sit down, just talk for a minute? I remember it so clearly because she brought my favorite coffee and those cinnamon scones from Lena's bakery, the ones she used to buy when she wanted something. She said Jack's startup needed just a bit more cash flow to secure a loan. Just a cosign, Dad, that's all. Your credit is golden. They won't even come after you unless something really goes wrong. I hesitated. I had my doubts, but she looked me in the eyes, held my hand and said, Dad, you've always believed in me. Just this once. Believe in us. I signed. I didn't know that wasn't the only paper she had me sign. 6 months later, I got a call from the bank. Not about Jack's startup. About a mortgage, Mr. Whitmore. Your second payment is overdue. Second payment. I don't even own a house anymore. I live in a one-bedroom rental that smells like damp carpet. Turns out Emily and Jack had bought a house. A big one, gated community pool in the back, granite counters, and they had used my name, my credit, and my signature. I felt the blood drain from my face. I called Emily immediately. Her voice cracked when she answered. Dad, I was going to tell you. We thought we could manage, Jack said. You lied to me. You forged my name. You bought a mansion. It's not a mansion, Dad. It's just, Jack said it was an investment. He said we'd flip it. I didn't think I'd what notice. Realize I'm now drowning in a debt I didn't ask for. There was silence. Then she said the one thing I wasn't ready for. We can't make the payments. In that moment, something inside me cracked. Not anger, not even heartbreak. Just a heavy, unbearable disappointment. Like watching the person you love most willingly push you off a ledge. I spent the next few weeks in a blur. Letters from banks, calls from collection agencies. My credit, once spotless, was now a battlefield of red marks and warning signs. I tried to contest it, hired a lawyer, but they had my signature, my so-called consent. And when I confronted Emily again, she just cried, said Jack had convinced her it was harmless, said she felt trapped, said she didn't know how to fix it. Jack, on the other hand, stopped returning my calls. I saw pictures on social media, Emily smiling in front of the house, pool parties, new furniture, everything pristine, everything fake. I stopped sleeping. Every night I lay in bed thinking about where I went wrong. How the little girl who once clung to my leg in the grocery store could grow into a woman who would lie, cheat, and leave me to clean up her mess. That I started selling things. First, the car. Then, some old tools. I canceled my cable, cut my grocery bill in half. I even considered moving into a shelter. And through it all, Emily barely called. She texted sometimes, guilt-ridden apologies, promises to make it right. We're trying, Dad, I swear. But trying didn't pay the mortgage they had pinned to my name. One afternoon I went to their house. It was bigger than I imagined. Clean driveway, fancy doorbell. I stood there for 5 minutes before ringing the bell. Emily answered. She looked surprised. Dad, can I come in? She hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside was a world I didn't recognize. Soft lighting, marble counters, baby toys on the rug. She had a child, a boy, my grandson. I didn't even know he was asleep. Jack wasn't home. We sat in the kitchen. She made tea like it was just any other visit. Why, Emily? Why didn't you just ask for help? Why trick me? She stared at her hands. We didn't think you'd say yes to a house like this. Jack said we needed to build something better. For our future. For our kid. But what about mine? What about my future? Her eyes welled up. I messed up, I know. I thought I could fix it before you found out, but Jack left. 2 months ago. Took money and disappeared. I looked around. The cracks in the dream were showing. Unpaid bills on the counter. Empty wine glass in the sink. A woman barely holding on. You're not just my daughter, I said. You're the only family I have left. And you broke something I don't know how to fix. She reached across the table, but I pulled back. I can't trust you right now. Her tears fell. silent and heavy. I stood up and left. That night, I sat alone in my apartment staring at the ceiling, wondering how many other parents go through this, betrayed not by strangers, but by the ones they raised, the ones they held through every nightmare. I thought about what to do next: sell more, move, try to rebuild. I didn't have an answer, but I knew this wasn't over. Somewhere inside, I still believed Emily wasn't beyond saving, or maybe I just needed to believe that, to keep myself from falling apart. The phone buzzed. It was a message from her dad. "Please don't give up on me. I'm trying to fix it, I promise." I stared at the words for a long time, and left the message unread. The message from Emily stayed unread on my phone for 3 days. Each time I picked it up, something inside me clenched. My finger would hover over the screen, then retreat. I couldn't bring myself to open it, not yet. Not when the pain still felt fresh. Like a bruise I couldn't stop bumping into. The silence between us stretched, thick and heavy. I kept expecting her to show up. Maybe knock on my door with tears in her eyes. Maybe call just to say something that felt like it came from her heart, not her fear. But nothing came after that message. I went back to the routine that barely resembled living. Mornings started with a weak cup of instant coffee and the sound of creaking pipes. I kept the curtains closed most days. The sun didn't feel like something I wanted. Debt collectors didn't wait, though they kept calling each voicemail a reminder of the mess I didn't create but was expected to clean up one afternoon. A knock came at my door. For a split second I thought it might be her. I rushed to the peephole, heart racing, but it wasn't Emily, it was Frank, my old neighbor from the house I sold years ago. He stood with a grocery bag in hand and a nervous smile. "Hey Al," he said, "thought I'd drop by. Haven't seen you in a while." I let him in. Frank was one of the few people I still talked to. We used to share beers in our backyards, talk about baseball and broken lawnmowers. He had moved across town, but we kept in touch now and then. He looked around the cramped apartment. "You okay?" I nodded, too quickly. "You look tired," he said, setting the bag on the counter. "Brought you some things. Bread, eggs, that instant stuff you like." I didn't want pity, but I didn't have the strength to turn it away either. "Thanks," I muttered. He sat down across from me, waited. I knew that look. He wasn't leaving until I talked, so I told him. Not everything, but enough. His eyebrows tightened with each sentence. When I finished, he exhaled deeply. "Jesus, Al, your own daughter." Yeah, he didn't try to fix it, didn't offer advice, just sat there in quiet solidarity, and that meant more than anything he could have said. After he left, I stared at the bag of groceries. It hit me then, how far I'd fallen, not just financially but emotionally. The man who once held his daughter's hand through every school project, every scraped knee, now had to rely on others just to eat. And yet, a part of me still ached to forgive her. I don't know what kind of father that makes me. A few days later, I finally opened the message. It was short. "Dad, I know I hurt you, but I'm scared. Jack left me with everything. I'm behind on the mortgage. I don't know what to do. Please, I'm still your daughter." I read it 3 times. Then I sat with it. She was scared. I should have felt vindicated, maybe even satisfied that she finally understood the consequences. But I didn't. All I felt was tired. I didn't reply. That night I walked to the park near my old house, just wandered around, hands in my coat pockets, trying to remember who I used to be. A man waved at me near the playground. His son was on the swing, laughing. I used to bring Emily here, would play tag. She'd collect pebbles and name them. I'd buy her ice cream from the corner cart and tell her stories about how clouds were made. She used to laugh so easily. What happened to that girl? What happened to the father who could fix things with a hug and a band-aid? The next morning, did something I hadn't done in months. I shaved, put on a clean shirt, polished my shoes. I didn't know why. Maybe I just wanted to feel human again. Then I caught a bus to a house. When I arrived, the place looked different, not just because of the uncut lawn or the fading paint on the shutters. It felt hollow, like the dream had cracked open and spilled out everything it promised. Emily opened the door. Her eyes widened. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Dad," I stepped inside without a word. The baby was crying upstairs. She moved to go, but I stopped her with a quiet "I'll hold him." She hesitated, then nodded. I went up and found him in a white crib, wailing with red cheeks and tiny fists. I picked him up, cradled him against my chest, and started humming the same tune I used to sing to Emily when she was little. His crying softened. I sat in the old rocking chair beside the window, staring out at the street, holding my grandson. I didn't know his name. Emily came in quietly. "His name's Owen," she said. I nodded. She sat on the floor beside the chair. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I was stupid. I wanted so badly to believe Jack, to have a life that didn't feel small. I thought if I could just get ahead, I could bring you with me. I thought we'd all be okay." I didn't speak. She rubbed her face. "I hate him now. He left me with this house, this baby, and no money. I don't even know how I'm going to buy diapers next week." Owen shifted in my arms. "You have me," I said finally. Her eyes met mine. "I don't deserve you." "No, you don't, but you're still my daughter." She began to cry, not loud, just soft sobs into her hands. The kind that come from guilt so heavy it's almost physical. I looked down at Owen. His little hand rested against my chest. We'll figure something out, I said. I stayed the night on the couch. It smelled faintly of formula and old wood. In the morning I made her breakfast. Toast and eggs, like I used to when she was 12 and nervous about a math test. She smiled at the plate. I forgot you always use too much butter, she said. That's the best part. We talked about Owen, about the debt, about what she could do to keep the house afloat. It wasn't much, but it was something. Over the next few days, I kept coming back. Sometimes to babysit. Sometimes just to sit on the porch while she cried in the kitchen. We didn't fix anything. Not really. The debt was still there. The house was still too big. The pain still too fresh. But we talked. And that was more than we had done in months. One evening, while Owen slept, she handed me a stack of papers. I called the bank. I told them the truth. They said if you press charges for the fraud, they might let you off the hook legally. I'd be the one stuck. I looked at her. She didn't cry. Didn't beg. Just sat there waiting. You'd lose the house, I said. She nodded. I already lost your trust. I can't lose your freedom too. I didn't touch the papers. Instead, I looked at the baby monitor. Owen was twitching in his sleep. Let's wait, I said. She looked surprised. Wait for what? For a better plan. Maybe there's a way we can both come out of this. You, me, and that little boy upstairs. She blinked at me. After everything, you'd still help me. I didn't answer right away because I didn't know if it was the right choice, but I knew it was the only one that felt human. I stood and walked to the window. The sun was setting, orange streaks across the clouds. A quiet reminder that endings didn't always have to mean finality. Sometimes they were just the space between two chapters. She came beside me. Dad, she whispered, can we fix this? I placed my hand on the glass. Outside, a breeze danced through the trees. I didn't answer. Not yet, because the truth was I didn't know, but I was willing to try. And sometimes, trying is all we have. The air in the house felt different that evening. Not lighter, not exactly, but quieter, like the noise of all the fights, all the mistakes, had paused. Just for a little while. Emily and I didn't talk much after that conversation. Sometimes, silence said more than words ever could. She made tea. I held Owen, still warm from his nap, his tiny hand curling around my thumb, his breathing soft, rhythmic, as if he somehow knew I needed that stillness. I stayed the night again. This time, without asking. The couch had a broken spring, and the blanket was thin, but I didn't mind. There was something comforting in simply being there. In the middle of the wreckage, yes, but still there in the morning. I woke to the smell of pancakes. Emily stood in the kitchen, flour on her sleeve, hair in a messy bun, focused on the stove. We hadn't seen her cook since she was a teenager. She didn't look up when she spoke. I signed up for weekend shifts at the diner near Maine. They're short on staff. It's not much, but it's something. I sat at the table, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. That's good, I said. She plated the pancakes in silence, setting one in front of me. No syrup, just butter melting into the golden stack. I also called an agency, she continued. They might help find part-time childcare, government subsidized. I'm on the waiting list. I nodded slowly. That's a start. She sat across from me, and for the first time in weeks I saw something in her eyes. Determination, maybe even a little shame, but mixed with resolve. Owen started to fuss from the other room. Emily moved to go, but I stopped her with a gentle wave of my hand. I got him. I stood, my legs aching slightly, and walked toward the sound of his whimpers. In the nursery. The light filtered in through the faded curtains. Owen lay in his crib, fists in the air, legs kicking. I picked him up, held him close, and whispered nonsense words to calm him. He smelled like baby lotion and innocence. Something about that smell broke something inside me again, but in a softer way. Back in the kitchen, Emily was cleaning, not just wiping things, but scrubbing hard, like she was trying to erase the mess with every stroke. You know, I said, rocking Owen, when you were his age, your mom used to hum to you while you napped, soft little lullabies. Emily didn't stop cleaning. I don't remember her much, she said quietly. You were so little when she passed. Sometimes I think I made up memories just to feel like I had something. I nodded. I did that with my dad too. He wasn't around long. She finally turned to look at me. Were you ever ashamed of how life turned out? It was a strange question, but I didn't answer quickly. I looked down at Owen, now resting against my shoulder, eyes blinking slower and slower. There were moments I thought I'd failed, but I never regretted being your father, not once. She swallowed hard. Even now. The house stayed quiet after that. The next few days passed in fragments. Emily went to her shift at the diner. I stayed with Owen, fed him formula, walked him in circles until he dozed off. Sometimes I'd sit on the porch just to feel the sun again. Sometimes I'd stare at the mailbox, expecting another threatening letter to arrive. They did. Of course, debt didn't take days off, but I noticed Emily started stacking them in a drawer, trying to organize what once buried her. She wasn't running anymore. One evening while Owen napped, we sat on the porch with mugs of weak coffee. "I got a call from Jack today," she said suddenly. I stiffened. "He wants to see Owen. Claims he's in therapy now, trying to make amends." I didn't reply. I told him no, not yet, maybe not ever. She looked at me for some kind of confirmation. "You're the mother," I said. She looked down into her cup. "I wish someone had told me that being a grown-up meant living with the weight of every mistake it does," I said. "But it also means having the choice to start over, even if it's 1 hour at a time." She nodded. A week later, I offered to watch Owen overnight so she could pick up an extra shift. She hesitated, then hugged me, her arms wrapped tight around me, like a child again. It felt like forgiveness, even if the words weren't spoken. I took Owen to my apartment. He fussed a little at first, not used to the dim lights or the hum of the refrigerator that never stopped, but eventually he settled. I rocked him in the old chair I'd pulled from storage, the one that used to sit in our living room when Emily was small. I stared at the wall, trying to picture what my life might have been like if none of this had happened. Would I be in Florida, fishing every morning with the other retired folks? Would I have joined that photography club I once talked about? Or maybe I'd be right here anyway. Maybe life didn't care much for plans. Maybe it just handed you people and asked you to love them regardless of how hard they made it. Emily called around midnight. "How's he doing out like a light?" "I miss him already," she whispered. "You did good tonight." She was quiet a moment. "Thanks, Dad, for everything." I didn't know what to say, so I just stayed on the line until she hung up. The next morning, I made Owen laugh for the first time. It was a squeaky, high-pitched giggle that came after I made a silly face. I did it again. He laughed harder and, for a moment, the weight on my chest lifted. It was still there, but lighter, like maybe we were all slowly crawling out of the pit we'd fallen into, one laugh at a time. When Emily came to pick him up, she looked tired but proud. She told me that manager offered her more hours. She was thinking about enrolling in night classes eventually, something with accounting. Numbers always made sense to her. "I want Owen to see me trying," she said, "even if I don't get far." "You will," I said. That afternoon, she took Owen home. The apartment felt empty again, but not in a painful way, just quiet. I made myself tea, sat by the window. Then I opened the drawer where I'd hidden the legal documents, the ones that could clear my name but ruin hers. I stared at them for a long while. Then I put them back. Maybe one day I'd use them, maybe not. I wasn't ready to decide yet. Some things didn't need to be solved all at once that evening. I wrote a letter, not for Emily, not for the bank, for Owen. He wouldn't read it for years, maybe never. But I needed to write it. "Dear Owen, if you're reading this, it means time has passed. Maybe you're grown, or nearly there. Maybe you've heard stories about what happened, about what your mother did, about how your grandfather got caught in the storm. But I want you to know one thing above all else. Love doesn't disappear just because it's tested. Sometimes it grows stronger where it breaks. I chose to stay not because it was easy, but because family isn't about being perfect. It's about standing still when everyone else walks away. And I want you to grow up knowing that redemption is real, that people can change, that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's courage. If you remember anything about me, let it be this: I never stopped believing in your mother, and I never stopped believing in you." I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer. Tomorrow would bring more bills, more hard choices, but it would also bring pancakes, baby giggles. The sun rising again, and somewhere in that mix of pain and promise, there was still something worth fighting for, still something unfinished, still something waiting to be written. The next few weeks blurred into each other. Mornings started with the sound of Owen's cries through the baby monitor. I'd convinced Emily to let me keep at my place. She was working longer shifts now, and I offered to take him overnight 2 or 3 days a week, said it was for her rest. Truth was, I needed him just as much. Holding Owen gave me something to do with my hands, something to focus on when the silence of the apartment threatened to swallow me whole. The nights were easier when I had him. I'd walk him around the living room, his tiny head tucked under my chin, his fingers grasping my collar like he was anchoring me to something real. Sometimes, when he was asleep, I'd just sit with him on my chest and listen to the soft rise and fall of his breath, like waves gently washing over a tired shore. Emily was changing. Slowly. There were still moments where I saw the old panic in her eyes. When an envelope slid through the mail slot, when her phone rang with an unknown number. But there were other moments too. When she made dinner without burning it, when she laughed at something Owen did, when she sat at the table, filling out job applications for places that didn't serve pancakes or demand tips. She was clawing her way back. 1 inch at a time. She'd stopped asking about the legal papers. Maybe she assumed I'd made a decision, or maybe she didn't want to know. Either way, we lived in a strange in-between space, not forgiven, not condemned, just trying. One evening, Emily knocked on my door just before sunset. She looked tired. Her uniform was stained with coffee and syrup, and her hair was tied back with a pen stuck through the bun. She didn't say anything at first. Just handed me a check. "It's not much," she said, "but it's for you, for the debt, for everything." I looked down at the amount. A couple $100. Nothing that would put a dent in the mortgage, but somehow it felt heavier than any number I could name. I can't take this, I said. You can, you should. Her voice cracked. I need to know I'm doing something. That I'm not just surviving off your mercy. I stared at the check. My first instinct was to tear it up. Tell her I didn't want her money, that she should save it for Owen's diapers or groceries or a bus pass. But I knew what she needed wasn't for me to reject her again, so I took the check, folded it slowly, slipped it into my shirt pocket. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. We stood in silence a while. Then she reached up and touched my shoulder. Thank you. I just nodded. That night, Owen fell asleep faster than usual. I sat in the dark a while, holding that folded check like it was some kind of apology in ink. It wasn't about the money, it never had been. It was about rebuilding something she had shattered, brick by careful brick. A few days later, Emily called during her lunch break. She sounded out of breath. Dad, I applied for a position at the local school, front office assistant, part-time but with benefits. That's great. I haven't heard back yet, but just applying made me feel like I might be worth something again. You never stopped being worth something. And she was quiet for a second. It's just hard to believe that sometimes. I know, but I believe it enough for both of us. She cried a little on the phone, not the heavy sobs from before, just soft tears, the kind that felt more like relief than grief. After the call, I sat with Owen in my lap, bouncing him gently on my knee. He giggled, kicking his feet like he was marching toward something invisible. You're going to grow up knowing she fought for you, I whispered. He looked up at me, wide-eyed and curious, and that sometimes fighting looks like showing up, even when it's hard. That night, Emily knocked again, but she wasn't alone. She brought a man with her gray suit, slim build, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dad, this is Charles, she said, her voice tight. He's from the legal aid office downtown. He offered to help. Charles extended a hand. Firm grip, Mr. Whitmore. Good to meet you. Emily told me everything. I gave a cautious nod. We sat around the kitchen table. Charles laid out a plan. It wasn't perfect. The debt couldn't be erased, but it could be restructured, reassigned in some areas. Emily might qualify for hardship assistance. Some parts of the mortgage could be absorbed into new loans if she got steady income. It's a long road, Charles said, but not an impossible one. I looked at Emily. She stared down at her hands, wringing her fingers together like she used to when she was little and afraid to confess she broke something. Are you sure about this? I asked her. She nodded. I need to clean this up. I can't let you carry it anymore. Charles pulled out more papers. Consent forms, financial disclosures, documents that needed both our signatures. I didn't hesitate. We signed together, and for the first time in months it felt like we were on the same side of something. When Charles left, I poured 2 glasses of water. We sat on the porch, dusk settling in, the air cool and still. I think about her sometimes, Emily said. Your mum, she nodded. I wonder what she'd say if she saw us now. She'd probably tell me to stop hovering, let you fall and figure it out. Emily smiled faintly, but she'd still bring over chicken soup always. We laughed, not because anything was particularly funny, but because sometimes laughter is the only thing keeping your chest from caving in. Owen stirred in his sleep. Emily went to check on him. I stayed outside. The stars were beginning to show. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes, listening to the soft sounds of the night. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Life carrying on. The next day, Emily got a call. She got the school job, part-time 3 days a week, but it came with insurance and regular hours. She screamed into the phone. I could barely make out what she was saying, but I smiled the whole time. When I hung up, I looked at the envelope still tucked in my drawer. The letter I wrote to Owen. I added a line at the bottom. Today your mother got her first real second chance, and I watched her grab it with both hands. I closed the drawer and let myself believe, just a little more, that maybe we'd make it through this. Some days were still hard. Emily missed a shift once. When Owen got sick, the house still needed repairs. I got another call from a debt collector that week, reminding me that numbers don't forgive as easily as people do. But when I told Emily, she didn't panic. She took the phone. She talked to them, calm, firm, prepared. She was becoming someone new, someone stronger, and I was learning how to be part of that. Not by fixing it all, but by staying, by loving her, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that maybe this wasn't the end of our story, just another page waiting to be turned. The sun had dipped lower than usual, casting a tired golden hue over the neighborhood as I sat on the edge of my modest bed, staring at the threadbare carpet beneath my feet. Time had moved forward, relentlessly, but something inside me had stayed still. Frozen. The once hectic calls from banks had lessened, as if even the debt collectors had grown weary of chasing a tired old man. There was peace in the quiet, but it was the kind that came after a storm wrecks everything, not the soothing kind. Each morning, I walked to the park near the public shelter I had been staying in. It wasn't much, but the routine gave me structure. It gave me something to look forward to, and sometimes I'd see families there, grandfathers chasing grandkids, daughters laughing with their fathers. The contrast pierced me in ways I couldn't explain. I'd often imagine what life could have been if Sarah hadn't done what she did. If she had come to me as a daughter, with honesty instead of manipulation, I would have helped her gladly, even because that's what fathers do. We give, we forgive, we love without expecting anything back. But she didn't come to me as a daughter. She came as someone who saw me as a name to sign, a loophole to exploit. The weight of betrayal doesn't rest on your shoulders, it rests deeper than that. Somewhere in your chest, right where trust used to live. I remember the letter I received a few weeks back. No return address, just my name scribbled in her handwriting inside 2 short paragraphs. I know I hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness. We lost the house. Jacob left. I've moved into a small apartment with Noah. I'm trying to make things right. There was no apology, no real acknowledgement of the damage, but I folded the letter and tucked it into the pocket of my coat, where it stayed. It wasn't closure, but maybe it was a start. One chilly morning, as I sipped burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup, a familiar voice startled me. Dad. I turned slowly. It was Sarah, older, looking tired. Her eyes carried the weight of regret, of sleepless nights, of responsibility. She looked nothing like the woman who had walked away from me. Behind her stood Noah, holding a paper bag, shyly peeking from behind her coat. My grandson. I hadn't seen him in over a year. He was taller now. His eyes searched mine for something: recognition, acceptance, maybe just kindness. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered, kneeling beside me. I didn't speak, not right away. I let the moment sit heavy, fragile. She placed the paper bag between us. Noah packed sandwiches. He wanted to bring them for you. I looked at my grandson. He smiled faintly, uncertain. And then I saw something in his eyes, something that reminded me of Sarah when she was little, before the world got too loud, before ambition overpowered love. I reached out and touched the boy's hand. He didn't pull away. Sarah watched us, her lips trembling. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. Her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. She looked down, shamed. For the first time in a long while, I saw not just my daughter, but the child I once held, once guided, once sang lullabies to. I saw a broken woman trying to find her way back from the wreckage, and maybe I wasn't ready to rebuild everything just yet, but I could open the door, just a little. Sit, I said softly. She hesitated, then obeyed. Noah sat between us, unwrapping a sandwich with focused fingers. I watched him chew, carefree. And for a fleeting moment, the noise in my chest quieted. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. The silence between us was no longer a wall. It was a bridge, shaky, incomplete, but there. After that day, Sarah would visit every weekend, sometimes with Noah, sometimes alone. She had taken a job at a local diner. She was earning little, but she said it felt good to earn. Honestly, she even offered to repay the loans bit by bit. I didn't say yes, I didn't say no. I just listened. With each visit, a new layer of her peeled back. I began to see the wounds she carried, the way Jacob had pressured her, the fear she lived in when he lost control, the lies she told herself so she wouldn't feel like she had failed. And though the damage she caused remained, something else began to grow in its place. Understanding. Forgetfulness. Not absolution, just understanding. One afternoon, Noah ran toward me in the park. Grandpa, look what I drew. He handed me a crumpled piece of paper with crayon sketches. It was of 3 stick figures holding hands, me, Sarah, and him, all smiling above us. A house with a crooked roof and a heart floating above it. I felt my throat tighten. For the first time in years, something warm touched the center of my chest, a flicker of hope, a reminder that healing doesn't always roar in. Sometimes it tiptoes quietly, disguised as a child's drawing. Sarah looked at me as I folded the paper gently. I know it'll take time, she said. Maybe a lifetime, but I want to keep showing up if you'll let me. I nodded slowly, because maybe that's what love becomes when it's bruised and weathered. Not grand gestures, not perfect trust, but a willingness to show up. Again and again, even when it's hard. And so, we sat there, grandfather, daughter, grandson, beneath a sky that had once watched me cry alone. Now, it watched me begin to stitch something back together. Not what was, but what could be. And while some things may never be the same, not every broken thing stays broken forever. Some get rebuilt, piece by piece, in time, with love and the quiet courage to try again.